Hello, everybody. Welcome to Targeting Winners, episode 58. Thank you for listening. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And today, I'm with Peter and Darren. Today, we're going to be looking for future bets and some winning future bets, hopefully, for Conference USA. Darren and Pete, how you guys doing?
Excellent.
Doing very well. Happy Sunday, everyone. We are close to season here, so getting quite excited for the season to kick off in a little bit.
How many days, Darren?
41.
41. Not that we're counting. So, before we get into our bets, I think we have a few bets for this conference for the future. Tell us some interesting new tidbits about Conference USA.
One of the few conferences that didn't have a complete overhaul. Kennesaw State, jumping up from the FCS level, joining Conference USA. Being that this is their first year at the FBS level, they're ineligible to win the conference this year. Despite that, we've got 10 teams total. Nobody has left this conference from last year. Much like every other conference, no divisions here either. Everybody will play 8 conference games. Top 2 teams will play each other for the title. And again, with Kennesaw State, even though there's no odds available for them to win the conference, they do have an interesting win total sitting at 2.5 across a lot of major sports books. Pete, any thoughts on the Owls and that win total?
Well, I mean, as you noted, right, they're brand new to FBS, which is good. They'll probably end up somewhere near dead last in the power ratings in FBS, so not terribly surprising for a new team entering. So, it's a team where if you look where they're located, they're in Georgia, northwestern burbs of Atlanta. So this is a team that has a really good location in terms of the ability to recruit in the future. So, I mean, coming into the FBS, I think they have potential long term possibility. They've been pretty good, not in the last couple of years, but before that in the FCS. So this is a team that has been decent in the past. So they have a future, I think. But as of right now, I mean, as Tim and Darren both said, they cannot win the conference this year, and that won't be good enough to do so regardless. So, Tim, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, I'm just with them being so new. I'm not touching them, even with the win total, because you never know with a new team. But it's new all the way around. These few teams at the bottom, we can probably group them into smaller groups. I'm thinking with them, I'd probably put them with Louisiana Tech and New Mexico State. Let's talk about New Mexico State briefly here as we move on. Darren, this is a team that's, I think you had a couple of bets on last year. How do you look at them this year?
Well, I look at them with much anger as they cost me my week 0 play last year. They could not even beat Massachusetts at home, but I digress. This team screams starting over like maybe no other team at this level. An entire new coaching staff after a 10-win season last year, 8 returning starters total. The mainstay of their offense, Diego Pavia, transferred to Vanderbilt. He had almost 3,000 yards passing, 26 TDs, and only 9 picks. He also led the team in rushing touchdowns. There is very little QB experience left on this roster. Top 7 tacklers on the defense are gone. Top 6 receivers are gone. Road games against Texas A&M and Fresno State. I get that those aren't conference games, but this team looks like it's in for a real tough year. I don't even see a bowl game here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Darren said it all. I mean, this is a team that is really, it's a rebuild, right? I mean, they lost their coaching staff, they lost their quarterback, who was really good. So they have 5 quarterbacks that are splitting time right now, and as usual, if you have 5 quarterbacks, you don't have one. So that's a problem for them. Just with the entire change, new system, new coaches, new everything, it's going to take them some time. It's going to take them a couple of years to get this thing rolling again. They've been good for a couple of years, but it's certainly a changing of the tide, kind of turning here with this team. So we'll have some more interesting discussions about them in the next couple of years, probably. But as of right now, there's not much to talk about.
Yeah, there's not much. Not much as of now. Not interesting at all.
I mean, just look at that schedule. I mean, at Fresno State, at A&M. I mean, where are there even 4 wins on that schedule? I mean, Southeast Missouri State and New Mexico. Where else? I don't know where else they're gonna get anything.
Yeah, well, they're racing to the bottom with with Kennesaw State, and the third team we want to talk about The Bulldogs. Louisiana Tech, a sentimental favorite for you, Darren.
Yeah, the first college I ever got accepted to. Go Bulldogs. But that's about all I can say.
That's about all I can tell about them now.
You can go first on the Bulldogs, man, because I don't have much here.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, this is a team. Sonny Cumbie has got to turn this program around this year, which he's likely not going to do. So I think he's probably really in the hot seat at this point. They only have 6 returning starters. They do have more scholarship players this year than they did last year, so that's positive. They do have major swing games on the road, which is a big negative for them. They've never finished higher than 5th in scoring. They've been 3-9 the last couple seasons. I mean, this is not exactly a good news story here. Penalties, turnovers, all of that. Their defense is abysmal. For all these reasons, I mean, this team really, I don't see how they're going to turn around for Sonny, and I think he's probably short-lived as the head coach there at La Tech.
Yeah, this defense, bottom of the conference in a lot of categories, including points per game at just over 33. They lose Hank Bachmeier when he wasn't hurt. He was actually halfway decent at the QB position. They do avoid Liberty. Everybody avoids one team in this conference. They avoid Liberty, so that's at least one positive. And the only other thing I got here, Marquise Crosby, who ran for almost 1,000 yards for them in 2022. He is coming back from an injury, so while they work in a new QB, at least they could have some semblance of a running game. But there's not much here positive here for the Bulldogs.
Well, that's good for us because we get to move on. So we're done. We're with the absolute basement.
Listen, there will be no slander of any college that any of us got accepted into. So it's going to be rough enough for them. Let's just leave it at that.
I don't believe that because I think you guys will be slamming Florida State before the end of this year. So that's that's going to happen.
Fair.
You know it's going to happen.
That's fair.
So, well, let's get into this is the middle part of this conference preview is, where we like to do some hedge hunting. Some interesting teams now that we get rid of the bottom 3. We're kind of moving into the middle. Let's talk about the UTEP Miners. Very interesting there at, I believe, plus 7,000 when we last saw them.
And looks like DK's got plus 6,000, but if you can find plus 7 and you really like them.
Did it move a little bit? Great.
Yeah. Well, this was last week when I pulled.
Okay.
Yeah. So it probably moved, but but plus 6,000, still good. I think they got a new coach coming in. What do you guys like about these guys? This is interesting.
It is. I mean, this, especially after this year, right? So, you've got a new coach who's a really good coach coming in. I love the coaching hire with Scotty Walden coming from Austin Peay, bringing a bunch of players with him, other coaches with him. He's had a really good, his record is 26-14 at Austin Peay. I mean, really, really good job there. Built a program up. So this is a team that I think has a future because of Scotty at the helm. It's just going to take him some time, right? It's going to take him, recruiting classes. Now, that being said, right, his first recruiting class this year was excellent compared to what they've had in the past, especially since he started late, because he wasn't hired till later in December. And this created, a pretty short window for him. And still, the recruiting class was substantially better than it's been at UTEP in prior years. So that's a really good start. As I mentioned already, bringing some players over from Austin Peay. I think that if you give Scotty a year or two, even maybe next year, this could be a really interesting discussion. It's just going to take him some time. But outside of that, I think going forward, very interesting team.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, we had talked about staffs that are completely rebuilt from last year. Same case here with the Miners. But the one good thing is, and Pete had touched on this with all the Austin Peay transfers. He's got at least a dozen last I counted, and 10 of them are on the offensive side of the ball. So if anything, the offense may be up to speed faster than the defense. And that's kind of important because this team could barely average 20 points a game last year, while his Austin Peay teams were averaging like in the mid 30s. I think they had like 34 points and change last year. And he's going to need all those offensive guys because they lost a lot, including all 5 starters on the O-line. So defensively, this team was not very good. They probably still won't be, but at least they're taking the steps to put some sort of a competitive offense on the field. Like Pete said, it'll take time. And I do like this hire as well. Definitely see them as middle of the pack, but wouldn't touch them at plus 6 or plus 7,000 to win this conference.
Okay. Let's go to this a very interesting team, FIU. Let's go. That's the big line. The last time I had them at 11,000. What do you got them out, Darren?
Are we skipping Middle Tennessee State?
Well, I was going to come to them next, but
we got to save FIU because Pete and I are going to gloat about them.
Oh,
we're going to try to gloat about them. Yes,
we're going to gloat. Whether we're right or not is something completely different. But we're going to gloat because we like them. So we're getting rid of the
Tennessee
team.
State. Spoiler alert. Yeah. We'll get back to FIU in a minute.
Yeah, let's get the last team that.
Here's the schedule for Middle Tennessee State. They do have a new coach.
All right, I'll go first here. Plus 3,000 seems kind of low to me for them to win this conference. They are one of the few teams that actually brings back a halfway decent quarterback. So Nicholas Vattiato, welcome to the discussion, buddy. He had a pretty good year last year. He does have to cut down on the turnovers, had 13 picks. Again, only like 7 returning starters. And again, an entire new coaching staff. They're bringing in Derek Mason. If you're like, who's that? Yeah, he coached Vandy. To his credit, in his time there, he got Vanderbilt to 2 bowl games, believe it or not. Yes, Vanderbilt has actually played in bowl games this century. And despite Vattiato being a pretty good quarterback, he's only got one of his top 6 receivers coming back. So, again, kind of like starting from scratch here, but at least an experienced quarterback and a coach who has had some success at a school that normally isn't known for success, the Commodores. But yeah, again, 3,000 is way too short for me to even see them making an appearance in the title game here. So a pass for me here.
Yeah, I mean, the best part about this team is their quarterback, who's a really good quarterback. Also, I think the receiver core is good as well. So I think, they have some tools on the offensive side that could be good. But keep in mind, you have a brand new coach coming in. It's a new system coming in, right? You have an offensive line that's being completely revamped, right, which is going to probably at least have some growing pains early in the year, if not all the way through. Once again, 7 returning starters, which in this conference is no surprise. We've talked about some of these in the last conference we talked about as well, where some of these smaller schools, kind of in this tier, are having their talent in a way sucked out of them. As we look at some of the bigger programs, that's happening here for sure. The recruiting has not been good the last couple of years. Their last rank was 119, which is not great. So. Yeah, this is a team I think is going to struggle, even with a good quarterback, just with the change in coaching, the change in scheme, changing the offensive line and all of that. That's a lot to overcome. You need a lot of things to go right, and it's pretty unlikely that enough things are going to go right for this team to be overly competitive this year.
Be interesting to see what Mason can do there. I mean, obviously taking a step down from the almighty SEC, going down to Conference USA. So we'll see what he can. My favorite video, or for some reason, I always think of the video of him trying to talk trash to Bill Belichick. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. I'm mic'd up, and Bill Belichick's like, "F off, dude. Look at the scoreboard." And it's like, that's all every time I see this guy, I'm like, "F off, Mason. Look at the scoreboard." It's like, he's always a fun thing to think about him and get a little chuckle in. So let's move on. Okay. We promised. We got FIU coming in. Which one of you guys want to go first? This is your team.
Go first. I'm just going to sit here and wave and let you preach and just agree with everything you're about to say.
I think this is a team that certainly has potential here. If you look across what people are saying about this team this year, it's all over the map. You can find this team from the top 2 to the bottom 2 in this conference all over the place. And if I look at them, first of all, 15, return 15 starters, that's a positive. Major key games, 2 of them are at home, which is a big positive. Quarterback was decent, right? 11-11 ratio, touchdowns to interceptions last year. That's got to get a little bit better. I think they have a good running back core with Lawrence, Owens, and Joseph there, which really, if you watch some of the tape, and I actually watched some of the tape last week on a few of these guys, they flash, right? So there's definitely some potential there. So, I mean, if you look at it, I think there's definitely I think that the kind of the structure is in place. I like the coaching staff. I like the quarterback, which I think has upside potential. I like the fact that the 2 key games are at home. I like the fact that 15 starters are coming back. What is the issue? Defense, right? And anybody who listens to this, listens to our pod at all, knows that I preach defense, and their defense was porous last year. That's probably the biggest issue they're going to have to overcome. But I think their offense is going to score, and I think they're going to be a good team on that side of the ball. If they can get a reasonably decent defense in place, and I think they'll be good. And so so we talked about potentially having a bet here. I'm not looking at them to win the conference. I don't think that's going to happen. But what I do think could happen, so the over/under in wins for them is 4.5. If I look through their schedule right now, I actually see probably 6 that are potential wins, if not more, but at least 6, which is well over that 4.5. So this is a play for me here. I think they're getting undervalued with the early odds here, and I think there's potential to take advantage of that. So Darren, I'll toss it to you.
Oh, amen, brother. just to feed off a little bit of what you said, you had mentioned Keon Jenkins and his stats. He was a freshman last year. Okay, so to have 11 TDs with 11 picks is not uncommon. But obviously, yeah, he needs to get a little bit better, and I see a step forward. I mean, why wouldn't you? Again, you talked about a lot of the returning starters, 8 on the offensive side of the ball, including all those running backs. 2 of the 3 top receivers. Their big loss, Chris Mitchell. Yeah, he went to Notre Dame because he knew I had a future on them to win the national championship. So thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. 4 starters back on the O-line. They do need to improve. They did allow 46 sacks last year. A lot of D-line transfers came in. And the one thing you didn't touch on, and I'm going to just touch on this here because I found this interesting. Their head coach, Mike McIntyre. Tim, you're going to love this. We're going to dub this dude Matt Rule Jr. Kind of like Way Cool Jr., the Rat song from the 80s, but we're just going to call him Matt Rule Jr. And I'm glad you asked why, because I'm going to tell you. So this guy coached at San Jose State for 3 years. His first year, he was 1-11. His third year, he was 11-2. Sound like anybody we know? Yeah, Matt Rule Jr. 6 years at Colorado. His first year there, he was 4-8. His fourth year, Colorado was playing in the Pac-12 title game, back when they had a Pac-12. Guess what year this is for Mr. McIntyre at Florida International? It's his third year. It's his third year, Tim. I'm glad you asked. So I am expecting a big step up. Now, his first 2 years here, 4 wins each. 4-8 last year, 4-8 the year before that. So I'm thinking everybody, including the head coach, is taking a step forward. 4.5. I got this as well. Pete, I think I got plus 138 at FanDuel. I'm guessing you probably got the same.
Yeah, I got the same. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So over 4.5 at plus 138. I got a 1-unit play on that. And again, Tim's got this schedule up here. You look at the 5 other teams we talked about. Okay, those 5 are all on the schedule here. La Tech, New Mexico State, Middle Tennessee at home, UTEP and Kennesaw on the road. You'll notice Western Kentucky is the team that they missed. That's somebody who's a potential conference game player here. So they don't have to deal with Western Kentucky. You look at that non-conference slate, Monmouth. That's probably a win. I don't know if they're beating Indiana and Central Michigan or even Florida Atlantic. But that conference schedule sets up pretty nice for them. Plus 10,000 to win the conference. No way in hell would I bet that. But those odds really don't make any sense to me. I don't know why they're that high for the conference, but I wouldn't even hedge it. Like Pete said, they're not competing for this. But I think just the last few years with FIU's, mostly poor performance, it's a great buy low spot for them. So I'm glad that I was not the only one jumping on the 4.5 here, especially at plus money. I mean,
what do you have for their line to win the conference?
It's plus 10,000.
It's
the next, it's incredibly high. And the next one was like UTEP at plus 6,000. And I mean, this was like 3 days ago, but
absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally 6 teams in this conference that you could group together. And I think 5 of them all have win totals of like 4.5.
Matter of fact, at MGM, they're plus 12,500. That's insane. And you know what? They're plus 4,500 at Bally. So the spread on them to win the conference is just massive.
Well, how many conference wins do you think it would take to get to the championship game for a hedge? Because that's a nice line for a hedge. If they're playing the bottom 6 teams, and we can assume they're going to win all 6 of those games.
Okay, I just want to say, as somebody who hedged somebody with a ridiculous line last year, I had Oak State at plus 5,000. They got in and they ran into Texas. Can you imagine if this team runs into Liberty, what that line is going to be? You're going to have to take out a mortgage or finance the equity in your home to hedge that to even gain the minimalist of most minimum of profits. I think, like I said, I think the 4 teams that we've yet to talk about are significantly better than FIU. But 4.5 just made no sense to me, like a lot of things in life. But yeah, I went on that like as soon as I saw the plus money.
All right. Well, let's move on to the top four. We're going to do Jacksonville State first, just because this is the last team that I couldn't find a decent graphic for their schedule. I had to get these from ESPN. So Jacksonville State, they are, I believe, plus 580 and a win total of 7.5. Darren, that's interesting, I think.
It is interesting. I mean, like Pete, I am a big Rich Rod guy. He does a great job here. But again, you just look at only 9 returning starters. Their quarterback play was pretty inconsistent. Zion Webb, who was their main starter, he's gone. That leaves things to Logan Smothers. He had a couple games where he looked good. He had a couple games like it was his first day on the roster. So he definitely has to improve. Again, losing the top 2 running backs, top 2 wide receivers. This team is known for their defense. However, they had an excellent defense last year. But again, only 4 starters return on that side of the ball. They did do pretty well in the portal, so I don't expect like a gigantic drop off here. But again, road games at Liberty and Western Kentucky, those are going to be tough. I don't know if they have enough to beat either of those teams. But yeah, that November 30th game at Western Kentucky could certainly be a big one. I would not bet them here. I mean, I like the team. Like I said, I just think that a couple teams that we've yet to touch on are better prepared to win this conference than they are.
Peter, any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, obviously as a Wolverine, I have a lot of thoughts on Rich Rod. Love him as a coach. I think Rich Rod in this conference has great potential, especially as we look forward into the future. It was their first year in the FBS last year. They went 9-4. Right, that doesn't happen very often, where you have a team come up and succeeds at that level, which is very positive. So, I see a lot of bright future going here. If I look at quarterback, Darren mentioned quarterback, they've got to get better play there. I think they got a couple potentials here, including a freshman transfer, Tyler Huff, which could help them out as well. Their backfield is really good, which I think will certainly help a new quarterback or a quarterback that's trying to kind of advance forward a bit. So I like their backfield quite a bit. Their line of scrimmage, so they've owned the line of scrimmage last year, and that is huge, right? You get that kind of play on both sides of the ball. That obviously leads to success, and I think we'll see some of that here as well, including one of the best linemen in the country. So they have some really good O-line play. I'm really interesting to see them play Coastal Carolina in week 1. I think that'll be an intriguing game to watch, because we already did that conference. We talked about Coastal Carolina a bit. I think those two teams match up pretty nicely together, so it will be interesting to see how they play. They definitely, one of the negative sides, they have some tough road games this year, so schedule is a bit of a challenge for them. But still, and I think this is a team that absolutely can compete here, and certainly offensively, even with some questionable quarterback play at times. I mean, Rich Rod does have the ability to get some pretty good things out of quarterbacks that are semi-mediocre at times. So I think there certainly is some upside there. So. Yeah, I like the team. I'm not leaning into them to win this conference, but I think they definitely have potential. They could. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm actually a little less enthused with Jacksonville State than you guys are. I'm actually leaning. I'm not betting, but I'm leaning towards the under of 7.5 wins. They do have 3 starters coming back on that offensive line, but the lack of returning starters around the rest of the lineup, the questionable quarterback play. With the tough road games, if I were to bet, I would probably bet under the 7.5 wins. That would be my 2 cents on Jack State. What you guys feel?
Yeah, I can see that. Just like I said, the Western Kentucky and Liberty games, like Pete had mentioned, both on the road. That Coastal Carolina game could make or break that bet should you end up making it. At Louisville is going to be really tough. And even Eastern Michigan's not terrible. So if you get those 4 losses, they just need to trip up somewhere. Like I said, when you've got a quarterback as inconsistent as Smothers is, that certainly can happen more than one of those conference games. So I can see where you're going with that.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I think they're teetering back and forth over that number. You could play it either direction, I think, and have an opportunity. But I could certainly see that downside play there.
Okay. Well, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Let's go to the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They're coming in. They're over under on the wins is also 7.5, and they were at plus 500 when I last checked a few days ago. Any thoughts, guys?
Well, this one is mine to go first. So last, at least 8 wins in 4 of the 5 prior seasons, which is a positive thing. I think their head coach is very solid. Tyson Helton is an excellent head coach. They were second in the conference in scoring last year, which of course is a very positive thing. I think they have a very solid core and a really good transfer class coming in, which I think is a positive thing as well. So I think they're certainly stocking the shelves with talent, which is good. Dalvin Smith, really good wide receiver. Once again, somebody else, if you want to watch some tape on somebody, there's some really good tape on him out there to go watch. So, I mean, the biggest, I guess, negative from them, on the offense side, excellent. Love the coach, love the players, all of that. Defense has been an issue, right? 28.7 points per game last year. That's a problem. They need to get that under control and bring that down a little bit. Maybe with some of their transfers, they can help make that happen. But they're going to score points. They're going to be competitive. They need to play some defense, right? That's my perspective here. If they play some defense, they have a shot here. I mean, Liberty is still the beast in the room, but at least they have a shot to play some ball.
Pete, I'm giggling because of the line that you just said. And Tim, I don't know if you remember way back when we did the conference preview for this for 2023, and we thought, wow, Western Kentucky was like a minus 140 favorite to win this conference. And we both said, if they get anything out of their defense, they can win this conference. Well, they didn't, and they didn't even make the title game this year. So they got nothing. So yeah, I mean,
almost 500 yards a game last year.
Yeah, they were not defensively sound. Let's just put it that way. I do like the addition of TJ Finley at quarterback from Texas State. That will help them forget Austin Reed sooner rather than later. But again, it's going to come down to their defense here. And if they don't play any, they're not getting to this title game here. I mean, I remember, Tim, I think you bet them when they were getting like 4 touchdowns against Ohio State and they just got smoked. I can see that Alabama game going the exact same way. Curious to see how this team does, but being scared off by that defense last year, it scares me again this year. I see plus 450 at DraftKings. That's too low here. I just, sounds stupid, but we always say defense wins championships, right? Michigan. Yeah, that's what I thought. They don't play any. Until I see them play some, I cannot take them as a conference title contender here. So I'm passing on anything Hilltopper.
Yeah, the only thing I would only think about betting the under in the wins just because of that first game. Alabama has a habit of just beating the crap out of people, and it can make a whole team's season just go south right off the rip. So that could have a lasting negative effect for the rest of the year. Even though Saban's not there anymore, who knows? But yeah, if they don't play any defense, they're going to need all the offense they can get. And yeah, I'm not, but I would lean under just because of that one game. I have no stats or anything to back that up. It just always seems to be the team that week one always get their asses kicked by Alabama, and then the team really isn't the same the rest of the year, or they usually fall short of expectations. So that's my
I don't love their schedule. I mean, to your point, right? Starting at Alabama is not good for the over/under for the wins. I think Bama's a problem. Going to BC could be a problem. Obviously, at Liberty's a problem. There's a few road games here that are tough, and if you lose all 3 of those, obviously you need to win the bulk of what's remaining to get to the over. And I think that's going to be a problem when you're not playing defense, right? And that's what it comes down to. If you're not playing defense, it's really hard to win close games. You see that over and over and over again. And that's the Achilles heel I see with them is just not playing defense and being able to be competitive in games that are coming down to, less than 7-point wins, right? That I think is a problem for them. And I think it will raise its head this year again for them.
Right. Well, I mean, I probably would have bet that, but I don't want to tie up too much. With these future bets, you got to wait, 3-4 months, tying up too much of your bankroll. We'll probably talk about that again before the season starts, getting some bankroll management. I do have a bet for this conference, just not Western Kentucky. We'll talk about our next team, Sam Houston. Guys, I like this team. So they're over under on wins is 4.5. And at last check, they are getting plus 2,200 to win the conference. Why don't you guys go first? What are you guys thinking?
I'd like to see who gets the quarterback gig, first of all. They brought in Jace Bauer from Central Michigan, who had 9 starts there last year. They still have Grant Cannell on the roster from last year and a JUCO guy, Hunter Watson. I got to wait and see who actually gets that job first before I go any further with this team. They had a tough time scoring. Not going to lie, only like 20 points a game. They do have a lot of their offense back, 4 starters on the O-line coming back. But yeah, until I see who's under center, I can't really bet anything here with this team.
Peter?
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. I mean, they have, what could be considered a potential Hall of Famer coach, Casey Keeler, in the long term. Great coach, right? So, I like the team. First year in FBS last year, went 3-9. Not surprising, right? They lost 6 games by 10 points or less. Fine, right? But they were not good offensively, especially early in the season. They recovered a bit. So to Darren's point, I think the O-line being there established will help. They need a quarterback who can do something there because they're just that offense. It's almost the opposite that we just talked about, right? Where this team can play some defense, and they're going to play some defense, and they're going to be okay. But the scoring has been a problem. They really need to find a way to consistently move the ball and score. And it could happen with the right QB, but I'm not overly optimistic on it. But certainly, I could see how I could get there.
I mean, they're heading in the right direction. You had mentioned that they only went 3-9, but remember they did start 0-8. So they did finish with kind of a flurry. And I don't know if any of you guys remember that Liberty game. They lost at Liberty by 5 points. They had first and goal.
They were right there too.
First and goal at the 3. 4 straight incomplete passes. Otherwise, they would have pulled possibly one of the biggest upsets of the year. So
yes,
I think around that game they started to get a little bit more confidence, and then, like I said, ended with 3 wins in the last 4 games. So they're headed in the right direction, but I got to see who's taking the snaps here to see if I think that they're ready to continue that role.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you guys again here. I don't need to see who's taking the snaps. I'm going to fire at plus 2,200. They have Western Kentucky at home. They have Liberty at home, like we just talked about. On the road, they almost beat them. They started to turn it around. They have depth at offensive line. They can play defense. The wide receivers and tight ends, there's experience there. And also, if I'm going to just bet on them to get to the game and hopefully fire a hedge, I might as well fire on the over 4.5 wins as well. So I got a double bet on Sam Houston, plus 2,200 for the conference. And might as well go over to 4.5 wins, because if they're going to get in the conference game, they got to have more than 4.5 wins. So those are my 2 bets. Any thoughts?
I like that.
Ooh,
yeah, I mean,
jeez.
that is gangster, right? But they play defense, right? It comes down to a team that can play defense can be in games.
And they do
right?
that.
So, and they do that. So you're right. I mean, this is a team that absolutely could go over without question and could potentially win this conference. Absolutely. So I don't dislike those bets at all. I mean, if this team didn't play defense, I would probably laugh at those bets, but because they can, I think it makes sense. So yeah.
Well, just get in the game, and then I'm just going hedge hunting right now, and then just if they get into the game, hopefully you got a hedge there to get some profit.
Yeah.
It won't be as ridiculous as FIU at plus 10,000 or anything like that. So I like to play, and so spoiler alert, I won't have a bet on our next team.
First of all, can I just cut you off? There will be no FIU slander on this program. When 66% of us are backing FIU,
they did not accept you.
No slander.
You didn't apply there.
Listen,
but
I see where you're going with the conference bet. I'm totally down with that. If it's 4.5 is what you're getting, my only concern with that, and it may be a minor concern, but look at that non-conference. Okay, not counting Rice, but you go to UCF, they can score. You play Hawaii, they can score. Texas State got 14 points before the opening kickoff. If their offense doesn't get off to a fast start, you're looking at 2-3 if you're lucky. And then you've got Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, and Liberty 2-6. Now you got to win 3 of your last 4. And I mean, let's face it, we know they're losing to FIU. So
they also have Louisiana Tech and Kennesaw State.
Exactly. Okay, so now you've got 4. So they got to pull
And a Jacksonville State team that I'm down on.
Well,
Yeah.
you're
That-
down
that
on
Rice game's
anybody
not
that's
easy
not
either.
Florida
I mean,
State, so
That's another potential loss in that Rice game. So I wouldn't put that in the win column yet.
And that's why I'm saying 2 and 3 at best, I think, because I don't know at UCF's going to be tough. I mean, they could beat Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii's going to them. But Hawaii can, they can pass the ball, man. I mean, at some point, Sam Houston got to keep up with some of these teams.
Yep.
But I like where he's going, though, with the conference thing. I can totally see why he's got that going.
Yeah. And our last but not least, we're going to the favorite for the conference. I don't think it's any surprise. We got Liberty Bibberty. Well, do you think if there's a team from the group of 5 to reach the playoffs, what do you think their chances are?
No, sir.
Go ahead, Darren.
I don't like it.
Go ahead, Darren.
I like it? Okay.
I don't like it. And you know what? First of all, this is the only team that's actually a minus number to win their conference across the board. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's basically the same team from last year. Caden Salter's the best QB in the conference. They score. They led the nation in rushing. I mean, they can do everything offensively. Defense, but at worst, they're going to be in the conference title game. Now, as far as Tim's other question, I think they've got another soft schedule. You look at that non-conference, there again, no Power 4 schools on there at all.
Power 4.
Okay, after they went 12-0, they got themselves a Power 4 school in the bowl game in Oregon, and we all remember what happened to them. They lost 45-6. And I know the people who vote and rank these teams aren't supposed to consider what happened last year, but come on, they're going to consider what happened last year. They're not going to want to put that in again. 12-team playoff. We got to get the best group of 5 representative. And if you've got a 12-1 or even a 12-1 Liberty team, but like Boise goes 11-2, maybe loses a close conference game and plays Oregon halfway decent in week 2 of their season. I mean, I think they're taking Boise State over Liberty. We haven't done the AAC yet. Memphis, there's a lot of articles out there that say Memphis could be the rep. I think the soft schedule, I mean, there's literally no room for error here. I mean, East Carolina's improved. Now, if App State beats them, now you can make a case for App State being the group of 5 representative. They win the Sun Belt. So they can be like, hey, we beat Liberty. Yeah. So just too much needs to go right.
That's the game right there. I mean, that's September 28th game at Appy State. Liberty could go undefeated if they win that game. And if they go undefeated winning that game, that could lead them to be the representative, right? So if that's the potential for them there. If they lose that game, I think they're out regardless, right? I think that'll be a problem because to your point, right? So I think that's it. I mean, if they go undefeated, which would include beating Appy State, then absolutely they could be the representative. They lose that game, they're probably not going to be. But they're still, for this conference, right? There's not a lot to talk about in this conference because they are the powerhouse in this conference. I think they will win it unless they just trip and fall on their face, which I don't expect them to do. They're a really good team. Obviously, we've talked about that. So they're, it's beating the old drum. We all know that. So really, the larger discussion with them is can they actually get into the playoff? There's a possibility, right? Their schedule plays out for it. So we'll see how it plays. It'll be interesting. So I'm going to definitely be watching that September 28th game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, and the AAC could all beat the living crap out of each other. Your conference winner could easily be, 9-3. Does a 3-loss team make it regardless of if they're a champion or not? Unless you're an SEC team, I don't think a 9-3 team gets in. But yeah, they need to be perfect. I think, and if they like Pete said,
they can get the FSU treatment next year, right? This year, which is that they can go undefeated and potentially still not get in. I mean, I would think they would get in undefeated, but it's possible that they could not get in undefeated. Who knows?
I mean, they were ranked 18th when they went to play Oregon, and I'm assuming that's probably the highest ranked group of 5 champion that was out there. I mean, I can't say for certainty, but I know they were ranked just inside the top 20 going into that game. But I just got a feeling the committee or whatever geniuses come up with who gets in, somebody's remembering 45-6. And
yes.
They need to be perfect. They can't have any trip ups where they have to hold off Sam Houston, 4 straight plays from the 3-yard line. I mean, they need to like the old BCS days, man. You need to steamroll everybody. Beat App State, maybe not convincingly, just beat them because that is a road game.
Yes.
Yeah, they could do it, but I just too much needs to go right. Health is a concern, obviously.
I think their defense needs to be better than I think it's going to be. I think their defense is going to be okay, but I think it needs to be better than I think it's going to be for them to make that happen. If the defense steps back at all, which they were not that great last year, their defense was an issue. If they don't clean that up a bit, they will absolutely have a problem. So I think that's kind of the elixir for them, right? Soft, nice schedule, set up for them well, play some defense, let the offense keep doing their thing, and they have a chance. So yeah.
All right. Well, before we have a lightning strike or anything else, as we did before, Darren.
It's nice here.
Yeah, right. Why don't we wrap this up? Let's just do a quick summary of the bets that we got in.
All right.
We'll take it from there.
I got one bet, Florida International over 4.5, a 1 unit play for me, plus 138 currently at FanDuel, and that's where I bet it.
And I say ditto. I have exactly the same bet and FanDuel as well with the same numbers. So I'm right along with Darren.
All right. And I've got Sam Houston plus 2,200 to win the conference and over 4.5 wins. And that'll wrap it up for our Conference USA. Looking into the future bets, trying to find some winning bets here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You can catch us on Spotify. You can catch us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends all about us. And you can also email us at cfbdudes@yahoo.com. And right now, thank you all for watching and have a good night.